going to be making a recipe out of the Blue Zones Kitchen Cookbook by Dan Buettner, and I think you're really going to like this one. So if you're not familiar with the Blue Zones, these are 5 different zones throughout the whole world where there's a larger concentration of people over 100 years old. And this is really a neat cookbook. This individual went all over to these different places and researched, met with the local people, and he brought these recipes back to share, you know, ways that we can live a healthier life. So today I am so excited. I am going to be making a recipe for sourdough bread. It's called Eleni's sourdough bread. Now I'm going to print the directions in my description, but if you have this cookbook, it's on page 223, and this is from an area in the world called IKARIA. It is in Greece, and they have a very large percentage of people who live over 100, and there's so many wonderful things about sourdough bread. I've started making it about, I think maybe 8 months ago. I've been making it consistently, and I just wanted to try this recipe, so I'm going to share it with you today. So I'm going to start off by showing you my sourdough starter. Look at that, how beautiful. Isn't that amazing? So I actually had to really work on this because I had some surgery a few weeks ago on my knee, and I haven't made sourdough bread for almost a month. So I took yesterday, I got this thing back activated and doing its thing. And so we're going to use this starter to make our bread. So the first thing that we're going to do in a separate bowl is we're going to add 1 cup of room temperature water. And to that, we're going to add 2 cups of our sourdough starter. So I am just going to pour some of this starter in. I think it'll be the easiest way to do this. All right, there's 1. And their starters are all different. Some are a little more wet, some are a little more dry. The main thing you're looking for that I've found that makes the starter the most important thing is that you have the bubbles showing that it's risen. I mean, this is a wonderful starter. So I'm going to go ahead and add another cup here. All right, so I'll get all of that out. To this, we're just going to mix it up. Get that water and starter, just mix it together till it's nice and frothy. And we're gonna set it aside. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna measure our flours, and then we're going to measure we're gonna put in some salt and pepper. This is a super easy recipe. It's really amazing. Okay, we're gonna start off by adding 3½ cups of a whole wheat flour. I'm actually gonna stir this up. It makes it a little easier to pour into my cup. All right, so we're gonna add in 3½ cups. Looking good. All right. Okay, so I've got my whole wheat flour. Now to that, I'm going to be adding some semolina flour. This is actually ground really well from a durum wheat, and I am going to put this inside of here, and we're going to be adding 2 3/4 cup of the semolina flour. Now you're going to notice a big difference in the way this flour looks. You can see it's very fine, and I mean, it's almost like sugar. It's just really, really fine flour, and it's got a yellow texture to it. Now the recipe says we're just gonna put in a pinch of salt and a pinch of pepper. I don't know what that is for sourdough bread, But I'm gonna go ahead and put in like a teaspoon of salt, maybe a little bit more even, maybe a heaping teaspoon. I wanna be able to have some flavor in there. And I've never put pepper in my bread, but I'm gonna do that. I'll put in a pinch. I'm not gonna put in a lot, but we're gonna put that in there. We're gonna mix this up, this flour mixture, so we get our flours and our salt and everything incorporated. This recipe is kind of an interesting recipe. It calls for these ingredients to be kneaded 20 minutes. That is such a long amount of time to knead bread, but I just had knee surgery, so I don't think that I can stand here for 20 minutes and knead this. So I'm gonna do an experiment and try to knead this in my KitchenAid mixer with my dough hook, and I'm praying that it works. So I'll be honest with you, this dough is so hard, I am afraid it's gonna hurt my mixer. So as much as I don't want to stand here and do this, I'm going to go ahead and knead this by hand. It isn't worth hurting my mixer. I don't know why it's so hard to put this together, but it's a extremely stiff dough. I'm just very curious how this is going to come out. So the mixer did about 8 minutes. I'm going to try to do the rest. I might have to move to the table where I can sit down. Now, when I knead it by hand, it actually seems like it's softening up quite a bit. And it doesn't say to fold it or any of that. It really says knead it. So typically with sourdough, you're gonna pull it and fold it. There's no way you would do that with this dough. It's just not pliable enough. Now, if I can get it like that after 10 minutes, then I definitely will try to fold it instead of just kneading it. But I'm following the directions in the book, and you and I are gonna see how this works out together. I'm extremely curious how it's gonna work, and we'll see. I hope it turns into a good sourdough bread. I mean, it definitely looks very healthy, and you know, it does seem to be getting a little bit more pliable than it was in the mixer. So honestly, if I can get it soft enough, I might move it back in there too. So even though it didn't call for it, I did put a little bit of parchment paper down. I just think it always comes out a little bit better when you do that, and a little bit of cornmeal. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put that right there. And the recipe states that we're gonna cover it with a little bit of olive oil. So I'm just gonna put this over the top of my bread. Just like this. Then I'm gonna sprinkle some sesame seeds over the top. If you don't have sesame seeds or you don't wanna use those, don't worry about it. I'm trying to follow the recipe just like it states in the cookbook. Just like that. And then it says to cut a crisscross right in the top of the bread. We're just gonna cut our crisscross right across the top of the bread loaf. So then I take a damp tea towel, and I'm just gonna put it over the top of it. And I'm gonna set it aside in a nice warm place for 2 hours, and then we'll come back and we'll check on it. So it's been 2 hours, and I want to show you my sourdough bread. It's done a beautiful job of rising. It just looks fantastic. So what's different about this bread is the time and temperature that we bake it. So we're going to start off for the first 20 minutes. We're going to bake this bread for 20 minutes at 250. Then the next 20 minutes, we're going to do it at 200. And then we're going to drop the temperature to 180 for the last 20 minutes. So I'm preheating my oven right now. As soon as it comes up to 250 degrees, I'm going to pop this in for 20 minutes. And then we're going to bring the temperature down, and I'm going to show you the product as soon as it's done. So my sourdough bread is done, and I want to show you how it looks. So my sourdough bread is done, and I'm going to cut a piece of it for you. I'm gonna cut a piece of it for you so I can sample it, and then we'll let the rest of it just kind of rest. I'm actually gonna put it on a cooling rack. So it's a little more dense than the bread that I usually make, but we're gonna try it and see how it tastes. Put a little bit of butter on it, because butter makes everything taste good. I think so. This is that Irish butter. Very good stuff. All right, let's give it a whirl. Pretty good. It's hot, but it is pretty good. I'll be honest with you, I think I prefer the other sourdough that I make better. This doesn't have quite the sourdough taste that the other one does. This has a different kind of a flavor, maybe mixing the wheat and the semolina flours together. It definitely has a different flavor, but it is very good. I could eat it, but as I said, I prefer the other. So anyway, if you're interested in giving this a try, this is part of the recipe book from the Blue Zones Kitchen. I think you'd really enjoy it. There's a lot of really good recipes in here for longevity. I'm going to go ahead and link this book in my Amazon store if anyone's interested in looking into it and maybe adding that to your 2024 goals and changes. Might be a good addition. My goal this year is not just to lose weight, but to live a healthier life. So I plan on incorporating a lot of these things into my diet. So I hope this was interesting. Thank you again for watching. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.